So while the first question on the homework went really well, the second question was a little bit more rough. So let's talk about what's going on with it. Now the goal here is to create a contingency table. Once again, a contingency table is anytime we have two categorical variables. In this case, I'm measuring two different things. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make my rows about ketchup preferences. So I'm going to go ahead and on the side here put ketchup. And then if I'm doing ketchup on the side, that means Pop-Tarts is on the top. If I'm doing ketchup on the side, I need to pay attention to the fact that there are two different things going on with my ketchup. That's Leo in the background there. He's about a year old, so there we go. So going ahead and talk about the ketchup, we have either it's room temperature, and so I'll go ahead and put that on top. So this is going to be my room temperature. I'll put RT. And then below room temperature, it will be not room temperature. I'm going to write that as not RT. And with contingency tables, remember we always have a total row column as well. So there at the bottom. Drawing across as straight as I can possibly make my lines. I then put Pop-Tarts on the top. For Pop-Tarts, I know that you either eat your Pop-Tart with the crust on it, or there are people apparently who do not like crust on their Pop-Tart. So I'll put no crust. Now, in case you were curious, in case you are a crust Pop-Tart person, I asked people who were no crust Pop-Tart people, and the key is to cut the Pop-Tart crust off before you eat it, but after you toast it. So, the more you know. Here we have a total column as well. So this is the setup for the contingency table. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put in my numbers. I know I have a total of 200 students. Overall total will always go in the bottom right-hand side. That's because it's where the total row and column meet each other up. Now, I also know that in total, 150 people eat the crust off their Pop-Tarts. So that is that the crust is actually on there. So, 150 people eat the crust, which means if I have a total of 200 people, there's automatically 50 people here who do not eat the crust. I also know 120 people prefer their ketchup to be room temperature. That is, in total, there's 120 people who have room temperature ketchup. If 120 people like room temperature ketchup, that means 80 of them like it not room temperature. After I filled in that, the next thing I do is I go ahead and fill in the inside of my table. I know from up here that 37 people prefer their ketchup to be room temperature, so I know I'm dealing with room temperature ketchup. And they also don't eat the crust on their Pop-Tarts, so they're no crust, room temperature people. That is, right here, there are 37 people. Once I get that number, I can fill in the rest of the table by going ahead and using subtraction or addition. Remember, my contingency table is additive. All my rows and columns have to add up. So if I have 50 total no crust people and 37 of them like room temperature ketchup, that means the remainder, or 13 of them, must like not room temperature ketchup. Once I've gotten that, I can go ahead and use this row. It needs to add 80, which means if I've got 13 here, I must have 67 right here. Using the same type of logic, the fact that this is additive, I can either use the fact that this column needs to add to 150, or the row needs to add to 120 to get my final number here. So this is how I actually fill in the table. Once I've filled in the table, the next thing I need to do is go ahead and come down here and answer these questions. First question, the number of people in total who don't eat the crust on their Pop-Tart. Well, no crust people, I know, is 150. It's right there. Sorry, 50, not 150. So I'll put 50 right there. Once again, that's the total number who don't eat the crust on their Pop-Tart. I also need the number of people who like their ketchup not room temperature. So right away, I know when I come over here, I'm going to be dealing with these not room temperature people. And on top of that, I want them to eat Pop-Tart crust. So, go to the crust column right here. And if I want and, this is going to be where they overlap, which means not room temperature and crust. It's going to overlap right here, giving me a total of 67.